Casey Anthony, the woman once accused of murdering her 2-year-old daughter Kaylee,
someone just said that Kaylee was dead this morning. Surprise, surprise.
is back after 17 years in hiding.
The whole point of this is for me to begin to reintroduce myself.
And somehow, she's on TikTok.
I feel that it's important that I use this platform that was thrust upon me and now look at as a blessing as opposed to the curse that it has been since 2008.
The internet is outraged. We will never forget what you did. Rot in hell. It's a joke you are allowed to be free. Block Casey Anthony. Her case was one of the most controversial trials in modern history. A story filled with family secrets, calculated lies, and a verdict many still question. Now, Casey Anthony has reemerged into the spotlight again. This time, on social media, where she is still attempting to gain sympathy and change her public perception. But the question is, will she be successful? Born March 19, 1986, Casey Anthony grew up in what appeared to be a stable, middle-class home in Orlando, Florida. She and her brother Lee were raised by their parents, Cindy and George, a nurse and former police officer. From the outside, the Anthony family looked like a typical American family. But in time, that image would be called into question for reasons no one could have predicted. And it all started with Casey. To the world, Casey was the all-American girl.
Very energetic, very intelligent young lady, little girl. Always trying to do the best she possibly could. Always trying to make me laugh.
On top of that, she was the kind of girl who could make you believe anything she said. At first, the lies were small, harmless even. Take, for example, graduation day. On the day of the ceremony, Cindy and George took their seats, waiting proudly to hear their daughter's name. But Casey's name was never called. She wasn't graduating, and she already knew this. For months, Casey had kept it a lie, knowing she didn't have the credits. But she let her family believe it anyway. The next lie happened in the middle of 2004. Casey started to look different due to weight gain. Friends and family began to question, was Casey pregnant? It wasn't long before they had their answer.
She says, I just came from the doctors and I've got something to tell you. And she says, Mom, I'm pregnant. And I looked at her and her face, she was smiling, and I said, that's awesome.
According to her mother, Casey seemed excited for motherhood. But then came the bigger question, who was the father? Well, depending on who was asking, Casey had different answers. To some, she named Jesse Grund, her ex-fiance.
Casey goes, well, this guy that I had dated for a couple months, but we're no longer together. And I said, well, does he know? And she said, not yet.
To others, she claimed the father was a former boyfriend who had passed in a car crash. To her psychiatrist, she claimed that she was slipped an illegal substance and essayed at a party. But while the father of Casey's child remained a mystery, when her daughter was born on August 9, 2005, Casey seemed content, at least for a bit. Casey named her Kaylee, an Irish word for brave, and Kaylee was a happy girl that grandmother Cindy adored. She doted on Kaylee, treating her like a second daughter. Friends of the family claimed she was the one who woke up for the late-night feedings, the one who packed Kaylee's bags for daycare, the one who made sure she was safe and cared for. And when it came to a father figure, Jesse Grund, Casey's ex-fiance, stepped up. Yes, even though the timeline didn't add up, it seemed that Jesse believed, on some level, that Kaylee might be his. As for Casey, well, Casey was still Casey. She still left to hang out with friends, still partied, and still clung to the freedom that so many mothers give up to raise their children. In fact, according to friends, Casey even entertained the idea of putting Kaylee up for adoption. For her, it would be a fresh start. Her mother, however, shut that idea down fast. Kaylee would stay in the Anthony home. End of discussion. So, for the first 2 years of Kaylee's life, Casey Anthony lived at home with her parents. But tensions grew. By mid-2008, Cindy had reached her limit. She called Casey out, demanding that she step up as a mother. And then, on June 15, 2008, a huge argument erupted. once again about her lifestyle and behavior. The next day, on June 16, 2008, Casey left home with Kaylee, which her father George witnessed. The Anthony parents had no idea that this would be the last time they would ever see their granddaughter Kaylee. Over the next few weeks, Cindy kept calling to check in on her granddaughter. However, each time, Casey gave her the same excuse. She's with the nanny, a nanny named Zanny. Her full name? Well, according to Casey,
her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
And according to what Casey would later tell police, she and Zanny went way back.
How long had you known Zenaida?
Almost 4 years.
There was just one problem. Zanny didn't exist. But why had Casey invented a nanny? And more importantly, where was Kaylee? The answer to that was revealed through Casey's abandoned car. About a month after Casey and Kaylee's departure, on July 13, 2008, a letter arrived at the Anthony home that Casey's car had been towed. A few days later, on the morning of July 15, 2008, Casey's parents went to the impound lot to pick it up. It didn't take long to locate the car, but when he cracked open the trunk, they were met with a foul smell. See, George had been a cop, and the putrid smell of death you experience on the job is something that sticks with you. There was no mistaking it. A dead body had been inside the car. But inside the vehicle, the Anthonys only found Casey's purse, Kaylee's car seat, Kaylee's doll, a pair of women's sunglasses, a stained truck liner, and a trash bag with food waste. No body, panic set in. Cindy and George confronted Casey about the car and Kaylee's whereabouts. Casey gave vague answers and claimed Kaylee was with Zanny. Still concerned, Casey's mom and her brother Lee tracked down Casey at Tony Lazzaro's apartment, her new boyfriend at the time. This confrontation would result in 3 911 calls and a drive to the police station. In the first call, Cindy reported Casey for stealing and asked for an officer to come by since the station was closed.
I have a 22-year-old person that has grand theft sitting in my auto with me.
So the 22-year-old person stole something?
Yes.
Is this a relative?
Yes.
Where did they steal it from?
My car and also money.
Okay, is this your son?
Daughter.
In the second call, Cindy reported Casey for stealing again, but this time revealing Kaylee's possible disappearance.
I have someone here that I need to be arrested in my home.
They're there right now?
A possible missing child. I have a 3-year-old that's been missing for a month.
Before the third call, Casey changed her story for the first time in a month. Kaylee had been kidnapped. Cindy called in distress.
I called a little bit ago, the deputy sheriff said I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing. Okay, what is here now? Okay, you said it took her a month ago that my daughter's been looking for. How long has she been missing for? I have not seen her since the 7th of June.
Cindy also dropped the bombshell about Casey's car for the first time.
There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
But while the grandmother was clearly taking Kaylee's disappearance seriously, the woman who should have called the police a month ago was eerily silent.
Is your daughter there? Yes. Can I speak with her? Hey, downstairs. They want to talk to you. Oh, we have a different one.
Let's play that back.
Oh, we have a different one.
Yes. Casey seemingly had no desire to talk to the police about her missing daughter. This, however, didn't stop her mother from handing her the phone.
Hello? Hello? Yes.
Hi. Well, can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
And you know who has her?
I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
Do you have a name?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago?
I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid.
But the holes in Casey's story would be exposed the next day, on July 16, 2008, when Casey agreed to talk to investigators.
And you're saying that everything contained in these statements are true and accurate?
Yes.
Detective Yuri Melish tried to get to the bottom of the Zanny situation.
Back on June 9th, 2008, you took Casey to a babysitter's house.
Yes.
And who was this babysitter?
Her name is Zanny Fernandez Gonzalez.
Because if Zanny was real, then tracing back Casey's steps should make the case easier to solve.
Walk me through. You dropped her off to go to work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Get off of work and go from there.
I got off of work, left Universal, driving back to pick up Kaylee like a normal day. And I show up to the apartment, knock on the door, nobody answers. So I call Zanny's cell phone and it's out of service. I sit down on the steps. Time passed. I didn't hear from anyone. So I went over to J. Blanchard Park. I didn't really want to come home. I wasn't sure what I'd say about not knowing where Kaylee was. And I ended up going to my boyfriend Anthony's house.
The detective made sure to get a location down, but Casey's memory wasn't the best.
Where was Zanny's? Where did you drop your child off?
The Sawgrass Apartments on Conway in Michigan.
Do you remember the address?
I don't remember the address.
Do you remember an apartment number?
210.
Okay.
It's on the second floor.
Even though she didn't have an address, she described how to locate the building.
As soon as you go straight, you go over one speed bump, and it's the first one on the right-hand side.
Still, not knowing the address of where her child was staying was concerning, especially considering how long Zanny was allegedly her nanny.
And when did she start watching over your child?
It's been within the last year and a half, 2 years.
The detective also tried to get more information on Zanny through potential connections.
How long had you known Zanny?
Almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years Christmas this year.
And where did you meet her? Who did you meet her through?
A mutual friend. His name is Jeffrey Michael Hopkins. I met him at Nickelodeon at Universal, and I met her through him. She was his son's nanny at the time.
Does Jeffrey still work at Universal?
No, he does not.
How long has it been since he left?
About 9-10 months, give or take.
He moved back to Jacksonville?
He moved up to North Carolina for a short time and moved down to Jacksonville within the last 3 months.
Since they live far from each other, it's safe to assume they likely communicated through call or social media.
When was the last time you spoke with him?
About a week and a half ago.
But strangely, when questioned about Jeffrey's contact information, Casey said this.
Okay. Do you know a telephone number for him?
I can find a number for him. I don't know a number offhand. No, I do not.
And the reason phone numbers were difficult for Casey to recall was because she lost the phone with the numbers on it.
I have 2 phones. I just received a new phone through work, through Universal. The phone won't keep charged, so I use my old phone that I actually had gotten, again, through Universal for work.
Okay. Did you lose a phone?
Yes.
Was it your personal phone?
It was my personal phone, but I also use it for business.
Okay. What's the number for the phone that you lost?
Something was off, though. The phone number she gave was from the SIM card in her current phone.
And in that phone, you're saying was the SIM card, and the SIM card had the contact information?
Actually, the SIM card is in my Nokia phone.
And conveniently, all the important contacts were saved on internal memory of her lost phone.
I know there's numbers saved to the cell phone itself. So if we get the actual phone, I know I have one other number for Zanny, and probably a number for Jeff besides work numbers, and
but they're not in your SIM card?
They're not saved on the SIM card, they're saved on the phone.
She also explained how she got the SIM card before she lost it.
Okay, so the phone where you had the number saved was lost?
Yes, I filed an incident report.
But how did you end up keeping the SIM card?
I had taken it out. I know I left the phone on my desk at work after I'd switched the SIM card back to my old phone. And I hadn't been at work for at least 3 or 4 days.
And you said you made the report to Universal? Or?
Yes, with security.
When
9 days ago.
9 days ago?
Yes.
Back then, 2008 phones were capable of saving to both SIM or the phone's memory. So technically, her story could be plausible. But the reason it looks horrible is because she said she had the phones for almost a year.
How long did you have this old phone?
I've had the Nokia for almost a full year.
So why didn't she manually transfer important contacts? She said she spoke to Jeffrey a week and a half ago, but doesn't have his number saved anywhere? Then how did she call him? Most people write down important numbers somewhere. especially if those contacts involve your child's nanny. The detective also noticed the 1-year red flag and questioned her.
So after a full year of dealing with Zenaida and having her babysit, and you don't
Switching
remember...
numbers back and forth. Zenaida's number has changed a couple different times. She switched services between having Sprint and having AT&T or Singular.
What about Jeffrey? You've known him for at least 4 years.
His number's changed a couple different times from when he moved from Orlando up to North Carolina and back down to Jacksonville. I know I do have a current number for him.
How would you get that number?
If we can find that other phone, or I might have it online, I may be able to access it off the internet.
So far, Zenaida and Jeffrey were dead ends. So, the detective asked about any other possible connections.
Who else did you talk to about this besides Jeffrey? You said you tried to call Zenaida's mom. You talked to Jeffrey. Who else did you talk about?
I talked to Juliette Lewis. She's one of my coworkers at Universal.
And this is a moment you're going to want to remember for later.
You still work at Universal?
Yes.
What do you do at Universal?
I'm an event coordinator.
Okay. What is Juliet? What position is she? Where does she work?
She's also an event coordinator. We work in the same department.
You have a number for Juliet?
Ooh, offhand, I can't think of one.
Is she in your SIM card?
No, she's not. Some of the more recent numbers, her number just changed because she just moved back up north. She, within the last 2 months, has finished moving up to New York. She's subleasing her apartment.
So Juliet doesn't work at Universal anymore?
No, she does not.
When did she leave Universal?
About 2 months ago.
But if Juliet left Universal 2 months ago, and Kaylee went missing just 1 month ago, how would Casey confide in Juliet when the missing case hadn't happened yet? They may have spoken recently, but conveniently, Casey lost her number on her other phone. Eventually, the interrogation took a more tense atmosphere, and just like the 911 dispatcher, the detective confronted Casey.
Why didn't you call prior to today?
I think part of me was naive enough to think that I could handle this myself, which obviously I couldn't. And I was scared that something would happen to her if I did notify the authorities.
He even questioned if there was something sinister at play.
Did you cause any injury to your child, Kaylee?
No, sir.
Did you hurt Kaylee or leave her somewhere?
No, sir.
By now, you've probably noticed a lot of patterns, particularly about a specific location.
I met him at Nickelodeon at Universal. I just received a new phone through work, through Universal. I got off of work, left Universal. She's one of my coworkers at Universal.
In a bold move, Casey offered to give detectives a tour of her office at Universal Studios. So that afternoon, she and different detectives headed to the amusement park. This is where her story fell apart. At the security gate, Casey said she forgot her ID. But since she was with law enforcement, they let her in anyway. Inside Universal, she walked past hallways, doors, offices, appearing to know her way around for a short while, until she led them to a dead-end hallway, where she suddenly stopped walking and turned to investigators.
At that point, Ms. Anthony looked at me, put her hands in her back pocket, and stated, "I don't work here."
Yes, just like she had done for her graduation, Casey had hidden the truth up until the moment she was caught. She may have offered this fake tour to make her story seem more credible, but she likely didn't think of how it would backfire. Immediately after, around 1:20 p.m., Casey was brought into a small conference room at Universal Studios. This time, the atmosphere completely shifted.
And I can tell you, just for a certainty, that everything you've told me so far has been a lie.
Casey's story wasn't adding up.
Since I left you this morning, I've gone to every address that you've told me. I've looked up every name. I've talked to every person that you wanted me to talk to. I found out all these names that you're giving me are people that either never worked here or have been fired here for a long time ago. Okay?
And that meant Kaylee's disappearance also had to be questioned.
Because obviously, I know, and you know, that everything you've told me is a lie, correct?
Not everything that I told you.
Okay. Pretty much everything that you've told me, including where Kaylee is right now.
Casey, however, denied the accusation.
That I don't know where she is.
Sure you do. And here's,
absolutely
listen,
do not know where she is.
Let me.
But the three detectives in the room, Yuri Mellish, John Allen, and Appy Wells, they were certain she was lying, especially with their level of experience.
Let me explain something. Together, combined experience in this room, we all have about 30 years of doing this. Okay, both myself and Sergeant John Allen worked for the homicide division for several years. Matthew's got 20 years, so I'm very confident, just by having talked to you the short period of time, that you know where she is.
I don't.
You do.
The interrogation went on for an hour, with Casey full of denial.
This right now is this is going so far downhill, and this has become such a mess that we need to end it. It's very simple. We just need to end it.
I agree with you. I have no clue where she is.
Sure you do.
If I knew in any sense where she was, this wouldn't have happened at all.
Even after detectives found out Zanny wasn't real.
It's the truth.
It's not the truth, because I went to the apartment complex. There's no person that ever lived there by that name. The apartment's been vacant since March.
Even after detectives found out she lied about Zanny's apartment.
The apartment that you pointed out to me, the 2-story apartment, that's an old folks' home. It's right across the street from your ex-boyfriend's house, who you never mentioned. And you said you wrote the address down because it was across the street. That's a lie, because I've already talked to him, and we've already been by the house. And
even after detectives found out she did not set foot in the apartment in the time frame she supposedly dropped her off.
The last time I saw her was on those steps at that apartment that I took you to this morning.
No, because listen to me. We're even pulling surveillance video from an apartment complex, and they have to keep this by law for several days, okay? And we're not seeing you over there. We're not seeing you there at all that day. Do you think that we're stupid and we're not going to do all this stuff?
Even after detectives pressed her about her fake job.
You drove me all the way out here to an office that you don't have. I mean, does any of this make sense to you?
I understand how all that sounds.
No. Our purpose in coming here was to do what? Go where?
I guess there wasn't a purpose. There wasn't a purpose whatsoever to come up here.
So we're wasting time, valuable time, that ought to be spent looking for your daughter.
I'm trying to think of places where I know she's been.
You're not answering my question. Do you want us to help?
Yes,
you want to help us find your daughter?
I do want you to help.
Even after Detective Mellish laid out what the situation now looked like.
So I can look at you in one of a couple of ways. I can look at you as a person who's scared, who's concerned, and who's kind of afraid of what's going to happen because of something bad that happened before. Or we can look at you as cold, callous, and a monster who doesn't care, who's just trying to get away with something something bad that happened and trying to cover it up.
I'm scared that I don't know where my daughter is.
Even after Detective Allen tried a softer approach.
All right. Now I want you to look at this from an outsider's perspective. What would you do? How would you see that person different than you might see somebody, maybe a young mother who made a mistake and, maybe initially was afraid to tell the truth, but at some point came forward and said, horrible thing happened. I'm sorry. I feel terrible about it, but I have to tell you.
The horrible thing that happened, and this is the honest to God's truth of everything that I've said, I do not know where she is. The last person that I saw her with is Zanny. She's the last person that I've seen my daughter with.
We know that's not the truth.
And about 23 minutes into the interrogation, Casey admitted to one lie.
Let's go through this again. We're here because we got here how? To do what?
Because I lied. Because I brought you up here. And honestly, I was reaching for
No, stop right
avenue.
there. I want you to tell me how lying to us is going to help us find your daughter.
It's not going to.
Huh?
It's not going to.
As for her reason why she lied,
why would you do that?
Because I'm scared, and I know I'm running out of options. It's been a month.
What are you scared of?
I'm scared of not seeing my daughter ever again.
Detective Allen, still in disbelief about the numerous lies Casey made, confronted her again about her lies, which seemed to make her angry.
But saying I don't know and telling you that I just dropped her off and that was the last time that I've seen her, even starting with that, everybody else is like, well, and what happened after that? That can't just be it.
Then came a strange moment in the interrogation. The day before, Casey told both the 911 dispatcher and detectives that she spoke with Kaylee briefly on the phone. So, they asked about Kaylee's behavior, but it only presented more red flags.
You know what time of day?
Around noon. It was from a private number.
Okay, and what'd she tell you? What'd your daughter say to you?
She said, hi, Mommy.
And that's it?
And she started telling me a story, talking to me about her shoes and books. I tried to ask her where she was, and she just kept talking about the book that she's been reading. We have videos of her reading the story, and she's telling me the story.
So she seemed happy, and she seemed happy,
and fine.
She seemed fine,
She seemed
happy.
perfectly fine. There was nothing in the background.
Telling you about a book, telling you seen no sign of any type of stress at all?
Not at all.
Detective Allen tried to figure out why Kaylee seemed so non-reactive, which Casey somehow brought her mom into.
Well, let me ask you a question. Your daughter hasn't seen you in over a month, and she's not...
She was excited. She was excited, to talk to me. But at the same time, it's crazy that she didn't get upset when she talked to me, which it had it been my mom,
Is that
I know it
another
would have
thing?
been
Is that another
totally
thing that
different.
makes sense to you?
She never gets upset when she talks to me, whether I haven't seen her for an entire day or if I had to work late at night and I didn't see her almost an entire day.
Casey was speaking off experience of being away from Kaylee for one day, so Detective Allen pressed her again, bringing up the 5-week difference.
The first time you've ever been away from her for more than a day, and she wasn't the least bit upset.
She's
right?
always been like that, though. I don't understand how.
Then Casey claimed their phone call was cut short, which should have been a red flag.
And when I asked her to give the phone to another adult, to somebody else, she was fine. She was willing to do it, but the phone hung up. She doesn't hang up phones.
I would have called the police immediately, and that's the part that I just don't understand. Well,
I
we've
didn't know
got so
what
many
to do.
resources.
Did you just think that one day she's just going to show up at your house?
No, I sat around yesterday trying to figure out what to do.
Casey claimed she was trying to find Kaylee on her own, but at that point, detectives didn't believe a word she said.
With everything that you're telling us, you're painting yourself as a very bad person. Your family's going to suffer for this. Your friends are going to suffer for this. And remember what I told you about all these people coming out? They're going to crucify you for this because of all the lies that you've been telling us. We need to stop that right now. Everything you've told us is a lie. You're looking me in the eyes. You're looking at everything you told us is a lie. Every single thing. And you can't.
Then, dark premonitions of what was to come began to surface.
Okay? It needs to end.
The truthful thing is that I have not seen my daughter. The last time that I saw her was on the 9th of June.
No more lies. What happened to Kaylee?
I don't know.
You do know. What happened to Kaylee?
I don't know where she is. That is the God's honest truth.
Where was she? Something happened to Kaylee. Either you gave Kaylee to someone and you don't want anyone to find out because you think you're a bad mom, or something happened to Kaylee and Kaylee's buried somewhere or in a trash can somewhere and you had something to do with it. She's out there somewhere and her rotten body is starting to decompose because of what you're telling us. And here's the problem. The longer this goes, the worse it's going to be for everyone. Everyone.
About 34 minutes into the interrogation, Detective Mellish once again laid out how Casey appeared to them, given all of her lies.
That's telling me, remember we had those two people that we were talking about? That's telling me that you are the second person, this cold-blooded, callous monster who doesn't care and doesn't want to help because she's afraid that something so heinous happened that everyone's going to look at her and say, she's a monster, she deserves to go away, she deserves to never see the light of day, this bad thing should happen to her. I don't want to believe that right now, but you're giving me no choice.
Detective Mellish really tried to explain that they knew something was wrong and gave her a chance to confess again.
No matter how heinous you think that what happened was to Kaylee, this is your opportunity to tell us. This is going to be your only opportunity to tell us. Because what's going to happen, we're going to find out. There's not going to be a question, we're going to find out. Okay? We've got so many resources on this right now.
Casey maintained that she hadn't seen Kaylee since she dropped her off with Zanny.
Tell us what happened to Kaylee.
I dropped off Kaylee. And that's the last time that I've seen her. I dropped her off.
Where did you drop her off?
I dropped her off at that apartment.
No, you didn't.
That's exactly where I dropped her off.
And who'd you drop her off to?
With Zanny.
No, you didn't.
She's the last person.
No.
Then came another chilling conversation about Kaylee.
Did Zanny give you any money that day?
No.
Even though it was just a yes or no question, Casey had more to explain.
I would not have sold my daughter. If I wanted to really just get rid of her, I would have left her with my parents and I would have left. I would have moved out. I would have given my mom custody.
She even continued to put the blame on Zanny, the nanny they found no records of.
I would not have let anything happen to my daughter except I made the mistake of trusting another person with her. That's it.
No. No, stop.
As for why she waited so long to inform police, Casey explained it had to do with how her mom would react to the situation.
You could have called your mom 5 weeks ago.
I was
What has
scared.
happened?
I saw my mom's reaction right off the bat, and it would have been the same from the get-go.
Well, so you're more afraid. So wait a minute. So you're more afraid of your mom's reaction than you are if you ever see your daughter again?
No, I'm absolutely petrified. Absolutely petrified. I know my mom will never forgive me. I'm never going to forgive myself. Because there's that chance that I might not see Kaylee again, and I don't want to think about that.
Although Casey admitted that she purposely misled officers by taking them to Universal Studios, she insisted that she had a reason for going to the amusement park.
Backwards.
I'm coming back to places that are familiar to me, that I know are familiar to her. Familiar situations that
What did you think?
Just maybe
How old is she?
would help. She's almost 3.
She's almost 3. What do you think, she's going to take a cab here? I mean,
I know
how do
she's
you think
not.
she's going to get here?
Because she's with someone else.
Around 42 minutes into the interrogation, Detective Wells seemingly tried to catch Casey off guard with a haunting question.
Is your daughter in a better place?
No, she's not.
Are you worried about her?
I'm absolutely petrified. If she was with her family right now, she'd be in the best place. She's not.
He even caught suspicious comments.
She's with someone that I absolutely do not trust. And that I'm absolutely scared that
you don't trust yet was babysitting your daughter for a year.
I don't trust her now.
He then changed his approach to try to find out if anything or anyone influenced Casey's behavior.
I don't think you're a monster or anything like that. I think you might have some pressures in your life. Who exerts the most pressure on you? Like my parents used to do me.
My mom does. Absolutely.
Does she not think you care for your daughter good enough, or? It's rough. You're single mom.
Living at home with my parents.
Gotta be rough. You'll never live up to your mother's expectations, right?
At least not right now.
Right.
It's possible the detectives may have been trying to see if there was any pressure or jealousy at play, since Casey said it herself. Kaylee would have had a more grand reaction if she heard Cindy on the phone. Unprompted, Casey brought up harm, referred to her daughter as that child, and described her love for Kaylee in a vague, impersonal way.
That in no way means that I would ever do anything or let any harm come to that child. She's the one thing in this world that I love more than anything.
An hour into the interrogation, Casey acknowledged her mistake.
This mistake was not calling you guys right off the bat. I understand all of that. It's the biggest slap in the face, and I did that to myself.
But continued to blame Zanny.
The worst of all, I've done this to my daughter by allowing her to still be with someone else.
The interview ended about a minute later, after one last sworn statement.
Raise your right hand for me, just like this morning.
Yes.
You swear everything you've told me is the truth now about the lies and everything else? Okay.
Shortly after the interrogation, Casey was arrested for child neglect, giving false official statements, and obstructing a criminal investigation. But a positive from this interrogation was they were able to get Casey's permission to retrieve her current phone for further investigation. Yes, Casey's story wasn't adding up, and detectives weren't the only ones who were suspicious of her potential involvement in her daughter's disappearance. Media outlets shared the details of Casey's arrest and Zanny the kidnapper, which led online users to form dark theories. Zanny is slang for Xanax. Does anyone else think Zanny the nanny actually means Xanax? As in, I'm gonna give her Xanax to babysit her while I go out? Totally. Casey couldn't call 911 when she realized Kaylee allegedly overdosed because she'd have to admit to drugging her 2-year-old. Casey's Facebook photos also became a hotspot. Several photos from June 20th, 2008 showed Casey participating in a hard body contest at a nightclub. This was just 11 days after she claimed she dropped Kaylee off with Zanny for the last time. 11 more days after the contest, on July 2nd, 2008, she even got a tattoo that read Bella Vita, beautiful life in Italian. Everyone had the same question. Was this just bad timing? Or was Casey already celebrating a life without Kaylee? But one moment in the investigation would expose the entire dark truth. See, the day after Casey's interrogation, on July 17th, 2008, a cadaver dog zeroed in on the smell of human decomposition in Casey's trunk. You know, the same car her parents said smelt like a dead body. The dog then trailed the same scent into Casey's backyard. By July 22nd, 2008, during a bond hearing, investigators also revealed they found a single strand of hair in the trunk that looked microscopically similar to hairs recovered from Kaylee's hairbrush. Based on this evidence, the judge set bail at $500,000. Not long after, on July 25th and 26th, 2008, Casey's brother and parents made jail visitation calls with her, but the call with her parents stood out the most.
Someone just said that Kaylee was dead this morning. Surprise, surprise.
Casey repeatedly displayed emotionally detached moments, like when she revealed she hadn't been crying.
You really need to keep your spirit high for all this.
I haven't been crying while I've been in here.
Well, you know
trying
something?
to read books and do other things to keep my mind off of stuff.
When she casually discussed prison food while laughing.
He wanted to know if you were eating. I ate coleslaw today. Tell him I ate coleslaw. Well, you're probably eating a lot of things you never used to eat before because when you're hungry, you'll eat.
I hated bologna. I've been eating bologna and cheese on occasion. Grits. I don't do grits at all. It's terrible.
And when she revealed her brother Lee was the one who set priorities straight.
Getting Kaylee home is our priority. Everything else will fall into place after that. And that's the truth.
On top of emotional detachment, Casey also displayed an inappropriate tone. During a moment when her father used a touching analogy to represent their family and show support, Casey interrupted with a tone-deaf joke.
Think of me as the thumb. Think of that. The next finger, the index finger is your mom. She likes to point just like Kaylee.
Yeah, but it's with the middle finger.
Okay, the middle finger, I guess, is mom, probably.
When her mom revealed the reward for finding Kaylee, Casey managed to make it about her.
$225,000.
Jesus Christ, that's almost half my
lot. Well, a lot of people want that little girl found.
And she did it once again when her parents were given life updates.
Went and working, doing flyers and stuff.
He stinks.
Yeah,
and we showered in 2 days.
We got a flat tire as we were getting off the expressway. My car tire went flat.
Hey, guess what? That happened to me.
Yeah.
Casey also seemed more concerned about media scrutiny than urgency to get out and help find Kaylee.
I almost feel more protected here than if I were on the outside.
Tia Torres, she told someone that I was hospitalized recently with a mental condition.
Wow. I'm glad I'm not
serious.
On the outside. I'm really
you'd be...
glad I'm not out there. I don't want to hear any of this media bull. People want to have their face on the news, want to have their 2 seconds of fame. I never once wanted to be on TV or to have anything, period. Try to keep talking to the media, I guess. Keep things positive. Keep it focused on Kaylee. That needs to be the main focus.
Which led her to be very secretive.
Lee and I have spoken, and he advised me of something which is very smart. The written contact will be better than anything that's going to be recorded, since we can't speak openly, freely, in person. Okay. I'm going to write individual letters to each of you. Send them through the mail, through the jail mail.
I don't want to wait through the mail, darling.
I'm protecting our family, yes. Not from anything that I've done.
Someone threatening us. Someone threatening us.
Mom, just leave it at that, please.
This could mean she was avoiding police contact by writing things down in letters that no authorities or media would see. But perhaps the bigger red flags came down to Casey's dismissive behavior when asked about Zanny. Like when Cindy tried to confirm if a photo of Kaylee was taken at Zanny's apartment.
Casey, I want to ask you just a couple questions.
Good.
I know the pictures with Kaylee in Zanny's apartment. Is Zanny's apartment the one with the drums?
She had a drum set, yes.
The one in the picture.
I think there were even other pictures. I told Lee to look through everything.
As you saw, she dodged the question. So Cindy asked again.
Okay, is that Zanny's apartment? Because I know whose apartment it is. Is it Zanny's apartment?
That exact apartment, no, that was Ricardo's apartment. It was set up a lot like Zanny's apartment.
Casey gave slippery answers. And when pushed again, she refused to help.
Okay. Do we have any pictures of Zanny's apartment?
Lee and I already talked about this. I don't know. It could be on the disc at home. I don't know.
At another point in their conversation, Cindy also seemed to reveal Casey wasn't able to identify Zanny, which she was very defensive about.
Well, they told us that you couldn't pull her out of a lineup.
They're full of shit. I had told them multiple times, find a sketch artist, show me pictures, show me something, I can point her out to you.
But the more telling moment involving Zanny was this.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
How come she never got a chance to get the car? Doesn't make sense.
Mom, because this is recorded, and I don't know who's gonna see things, and who's gonna misconstrue whatever else.
In other words, if Zanny was involved, why was the car abandoned with evidence pointing to a murder? Casey was also dismissive when asked about her boyfriend Tony.
Did Kaylee ever stay at Tony's?
No.
Are you sure?
Positive. We hung out over there, but she'd never stayed, no.
Tony admitted to Lee that there's in his home. Could this be related to something like that?
No, it's not.
Okay, just had to ask, sweetheart.
No, his roommates smoke weed, but no.
Her quick denial could be a red flag. A more natural response would be alarm, in case Tony had any substances she wasn't aware of, but she didn't further question it. But perhaps the most chilling moment was Casey speaking out to Zanny as if she existed.
Listen, I'm in front of the cameras all the time. What message do you want me to give to Zanny?
That she needs to return Kaylee.
What do you think her reasons are?
Mom, I don't know.
Okay.
I forgive her. My only concern is that Kaylee comes back to us.
And her equally chilling message to Kaylee.
What do you want me to tell Kaylee?
That Mommy loves her very much. And she's the most important thing in this entire world to me. And to be brave.
But then, out of nowhere, on August 20th, 2008, Leonard Padilla, a bounty hunter, along with two bondsmen he was working with, posted Casey's $500,000 bail, meaning they put up the money to get her out of jail. According to Leonard, this came after a conversation with Casey's attorney, Jose Baez.
Finally, I was satisfied that the baby had been taken and hidden somewhere by his client. If she got out of jail, she would go get the baby and everything would be fine. I got the impression that the baby was being overparented by the grandparents. She wanted to get away.
In fact, Leonard was so confident in what Jose Baez allegedly told him that he claimed he spent over $200,000 on security and private investigators to look for the missing child.
He led me to believe, or wanted to lead me to believe, that Jesse Grund had possibly taken the child and fled with her.
But once freed, Casey told investigators nothing. Instead, she hid in her home as swarms of people protested her release outside. Leonard Padilla's plan was a complete failure. I came, I gave it my best shot, she didn't want to talk to me. What can I say? He told a local paper. But Casey's release was short-lived. Just 8 days after getting out on August 29th, 2008, she was back in jail, this time for fraud, forgery, and stealing checks. The arrest only confirmed what the public already believed. Casey Anthony was a liar, a thief, and maybe, just maybe, something far worse. In August to October 2008, the case would take a devastating turn when forensic analysis was completed on the hair found in Casey's car, believed to be Kaylee's. This strand had a death band around it.
The dark band that appears just at the base above where the follicle would have been, and if that's there, according to the experts, that means this came from a decomposed body.
This horrifying detail would be leaked to media outlets on September 10th, 2008. Shortly after, on September 15th, Casey would get arrested for the third time on more fraud charges for using her friend's checks while Kaylee was missing. But the next day, she was released again on bail. 11 days later, on September 26th, Casey's mother, Cindy, was interviewed by police. From the start, Cindy appeared overwhelmed and emotionally worn, revealing she was bombarded with disturbing claims or prank calls.
Especially when you get phone calls saying that she's in an abandoned warehouse somewhere at gunpoint and there's people, and she's in a box and stuff like that. I mean, it just drives you nuts.
The authorities were trying to build a timeline, and Cindy was very cooperative. But given the long time frame, it was natural not to remember every detail.
Possibly she was there.
Actually, I know she was there because I have to find out from Lee because I think we invited Lee over.
But she did offer ways to jog her memory.
And again, May doesn't stick out. I mean, it might be something that my memory will remember later if I go back and look at my work calendar or something, you know.
When it came to her relationship and home routine with Kaylee, Cindy remembered those well, suggesting these memories were routine and precious to her.
Most nights I, rocked her, even if I didn't put her to bed, I would rock her and
calm
sing.
down and took the 2-year-old.
Oh yeah, she always liked to sit in my lap and we'd read, or we'd go out last thing before. She'd like to go out and look at the stars and find the moon and stuff like that. Didn't do a whole lot. We stayed at home every day. We played a lot, finger painted, just did stuff, watched movies.
In one instance, Cindy revealed Kaylee's attachment to Casey, which makes Casey look suspicious because it contradicts her statements to detectives back in July, when Casey implied Kaylee doesn't react to not seeing her for a day.
We converted her crib to a day bed, and rarely would she take a nap on it. It's always in Casey's bed, and that's where she slept every night. We were trying to, every once in a while, let her sleep in her bed, but if she'd wake up and didn't touch Casey or someone, then she'd start crying and then get up and come get Casey anyway, so Casey just decided just to leave her sleep in her. And Casey kind of missed her too anyway, so.
It's a comfort level.
It's a comfort for both of them. They always.
There was also the conversation about Casey's ex-boyfriend, Ricardo Morales. Cindy revealed information that contradicted Ricardo's and Casey's version of events.
And the only time Casey ever told me, the only place that Kaylee would ever stay over was they were crashing at Zanny's. She never told me she was taking her to Ricardo's, never told me she was taking her anywhere else except Zanny's. And it wasn't that often that, maybe a night here or there sporadically, but she always said she was crashing at Zanny's.
Ricardo says that on the 31st of May that they stayed over there when they went to sleep, but when he woke up, Casey was still there, but the baby was gone. And what Casey told him was, you had called upset because the baby wasn't in her home bed, and she got up, brought the baby home, and then went back to Ricardo's.
No, I never called Casey and told her to bring her home.
Never.
In the middle of the
Okay.
night, except for the 15th. That doesn't stand out. Something like that I would remember.
This implies that Casey may have lied to Ricardo about why she suddenly took Kaylee home, or Cindy allegedly called and is either denying or forgetting about it. Cindy did reveal that she had limited knowledge of Casey's romantic relationships.
I didn't even know her and Ricardo were an item. I knew that he was a friend. She talked about Ricardo as a good friend.
At another point in the interview, Cindy raised concerns about Casey's ex-fiancé, Jesse Grund.
He was my first person I thought of that had a motive, that could intimidate Casey enough to keep her mouth shut, and that would threaten us because he's that type of person. He was in my home every day, and I got to know him, and I got to see his anger and rage.
But later investigation would reveal he had no confirmed involvement in Kaylee's disappearance. Cindy also shared a detail about her dynamic with Casey, seeming to suggest Casey was pressured to follow certain rules while still living in the family home.
When we got back, we saw Jesse's truck outside, and it was after midnight when we got back.
This is March of what year?
2006, because it was before Kaylee's first birthday. We walked in the room, and Jesse's in Casey's bed. They're watching TV, and the baby's with them. George was furious. Took her to the kitchen, and I said, "What the hell is he doing in your bed?" And she says, "Well, Mom, we're just watching TV." I said, "I understand that, Casey." And they were dressed. It didn't matter. I said, "Casey, you know the rules." I said, "No boys in your bedroom unless we're home. The door's always open." The door was open, but I said, "No one's on your bed." He goes, "Well, we were just laying there because Kaylee." I said, "It doesn't matter. You could have put Kaylee down in the crib. The rules still apply."
But one thing was clear in this interview. Cindy was devastated they ever lost their granddaughter back in July.
The 15th will be branded in my mind forever.
With all of this circumstantial evidence, on October 14th, 2008, Casey was indicted for multiple charges, including first-degree murder of Kaylee. Later that afternoon, Casey's defense attorney, Mr. Baez, drove her to turn herself in voluntarily to authorities. But along the way, they were pulled over in a traffic stop due to Mr. Baez's dangerous driving. Casey was immediately arrested due to her recent murder charges and was moved to the police vehicle for further questioning. That was downright dangerous almost. Why all the games, I wonder? Corporal Edwards asked. Officers thought they were evading the unmarked police cars, but Casey explained she thought they were paparazzi. We've been literally stalked by media, not just today, but for weeks. That was us trying to counteract the media from following us down to the jail, because our only intention was to take me down to the jail, to surrender me before this happened. Corporal Edwards immediately apologized, but explained how it would still be wrong to drive dangerously, even if it were media stalking them. Then he tried to interview her on the spot, but not before giving her a fair chance to her rights. Casey responded, "I would like to do that on the basis of with my attorney if that's possible." So, Casey was taken directly to Orange County Jail, where official processing took place. This took nearly an hour to do, and for the first time, the public would witness camera footage of Casey's demeanor around authorities. These authorities treated her in a casual manner, even making jokes. So, Casey seemed to join in.
Thirdly, something that records audio, so either way.
I can tell you I don't. Entree food, my friend. Woo! That was a long ride without doing that. Then that adrenaline done all at the same time? I don't even want to know what we're talking about here. You know.
I'm just going to let that go.
You know why I need it? Who's that? Just slide your hands out. No,
I honestly can't. So they're a little tight.
Thanks for entertaining us. Just slide your hands out. Way to go, Corporal Edwards.
Actually, if I could, I would have done that for you.
But this didn't mean they would let their guard down. There were several instances they were not afraid to correct Casey, such as the positive side to the press.
Who threw your name out?
All of the media said that it was from an inside source, meaning in here. So that's where they all say is.
I can tell you what I think of the media and what I think of people who leak stuff to the media.
I think it's garbage. Yeah,
but
I agree. That's the next way of putting it.
That doesn't make it any less necessary. Without them, I'll be quite honest, without the media, we don't find a quarter of the kids that we...
Oh, I agree. It helps. The exposure has helped bring in so many tips for my daughter.
The positive side for CCTV during interviews.
You would think that that's something that, you should be told. But you don't have to be.
Right. The law is the law.
Yeah.
And I will play within the rules of the law.
Okay.
If it's a tool that's available to me that I can use later to look back on and see if I missed something or could I have done something better, I'm going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, exactly.
The arresting officer even slipped in this comment, which at that point, he already knew Casey had an attorney.
Where I get sideways with people tends to be when attorneys get involved.
I've heard most people say that. They don't like attorneys very much.
I have many family members that are attorneys. I have no problems with attorneys. What I have problems with are, at some point, we have to set aside the rules and we have to find kids. And you know what? So be it. That's why I told you in the car. If you tell me anything now, I'll get up and say, yep, I heard it and she'd already invoked and we can't use any of it. That's just the way it is. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
Similar to her jail visit calls with her parents, Casey was also deeply concerned about how her story appeared to media. She made sure to ask about surveillance.
Just a random question. Sure. Are there cameras in all of the rooms?
I have
just
no
some?
freaking clue. I've never been in this part of the building, so
well, I know
my guess would be yes.
She criticized the detectives who interviewed her mom since the media got a hold of the footage.
Well, my mom wasn't aware that there was a camera in the room, I guess, when she met with Melich and I forget who else in the big interviews that were released to the media, and she was infuriated.
She got heated that information about her case was released early.
The grand jury and all of that is supposed to be secret, but it was released to the media right off the bat. My dad hadn't even been subpoenaed, and that was released. So I just think a lot of that's kind of funny. And the fact that they invited the media in when they were releasing the decision. My mom had received a text message from someone within the media saying they're letting all of us in when they make the decision. We're thinking, are you serious?
There are rules. I am quite sure that one of the rules that was followed was that when the decision to indict has been made, that part of it is public.
Yeah, that part's public.
And they can let the media into the courtroom at that point.
Yeah.
She even name-called the media.
You get the Nancy Graces. When people are only getting their information from the Nancy Graces or from Globe magazine or People or, stuff like that. Are you kidding me?
Then there was her shifting tone. When Special Agent Nick Savage spoke to her, she seemed more agitated, bringing up her disappointment in the previous detectives from her first 2 interrogations.
You anxious about today at all?
I have been. I mean, this is something, honestly, we've been preparing for from the beginning just because of words that were directly spoken from Yuri Melich and also from Sergeant Allen. They were saying that this is what they were planning on doing from the very beginning, from that first day. So they wrote me off within the first couple hours. So
I don't know if that's true.
That was the direct words that they pretty much gave to myself, and even they had said that to my parents. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say something derogatory towards someone, but
no, it's okay. We're just talking.
Yeah.
We're just chatting.
However, the detectives were not distrusting of her from the start as she claimed, but only after investigating all names and locations and finding out they were lies. Casey also brought up how no one reached out after the July interviews, despite her attorney being available, but Agent Savage corrected her.
I do have counsel, and that's something that, my attorney's always been a phone call away. And it shouldn't have taken it getting to this point, 3 months in.
Has your attorney ever told you that we would like to speak to you?
And we had agreed, him and I together, that we would all sit down together, him and I, and you guys, and, we entertain whatever questions you have and discuss
I actually thought
things.
that we made it pretty clear that, we wanted to talk to you. I mean, obviously, we can't come to you and ask you.
Yeah,
but,
understandably.
I thought that you were aware that if you wanted to talk to anybody, that all you got to do was simply ask.
After Casey blamed it on lack of communication, Agent Savage asked if the matter could be solved differently. After a short pause, she said,
Absolutely, in a lot of different aspects. And that's a conversation that I've had not only with my attorney, but with my family.
Then, unprompted, Casey brought up Kaylee in an unbelievable way.
So, we all still feel, I as a mom, I know in my gut, there's the feeling as a parent, you know certain things about your child, you can feel that connection. And I still have that feeling, that presence. I know that she's alive. Whether you have a bucket load of evidence downstairs that contradicts that and says otherwise, or all you have is speculation, or nothing at all. Whatever it is, if there's still that chance with all of these tips that have come through.
At some point, Agent Savage cut her off.
We had more than speculation.
It's unclear if Casey knew that forensics went through her car for evidence. Then there was also her body language. Throughout the 1-hour footage, she continuously fixes her hair and shirt. At some point, authorities leave the room while they wait for her attorney to arrive. And during the 35-minute wait, Casey is often fidgeting or adjusting her appearance. Adjusting boots, picking nails, adjusting shirt and hair, adjusting clothes and cleaning glasses, adjusting hair. Once her lawyer arrived, he confirmed her rights again, and they proceeded to take her to jail. As all of this is happening, authorities already had a hold of forensics results from material in Casey's car, which were pointing to a cover-up. But if Kaylee wasn't alive, where were her remains hidden? The answer to that question came on December 11th, 2008, when a routine meter reading took place. Roy Crunk, a utility worker, was relieving himself in a wooded area near the Anthony home when he spotted something. It was a plastic bag, hiding a horrifying discovery. Inside, Roy found a small skull with duct tape wrapped over the mouth. On top of the duct tape was the outline of a heart-shaped sticker. He raced to contact the authorities, who immediately arrived at the scene.
We currently have our investigators on scene evaluating the situation.
The remains were taken for forensic testing, and by December 19th, identity of the remains were confirmed.
With regret, I'm here to inform you that the skeletal remains found on December 11th are those of the missing toddler, Kaylee Anthony.
Yes, the little girl the whole world had been searching for had been lying in the woods, discarded just a short distance from her home. And since 5 months passed in Florida's hot and humid climate, Kaylee's remains were completely decomposed and skeletonized. This meant it was impossible to perform a toxicology report for suspected chloroform and Xanax. And ultimately, the cause of death would also remain a mystery. But based on the examination of the remains and circumstantial evidence, one thing was clear.
Based on all of this, the manner of death in this case is homicide.
Following the discovery on January 23, 2009, Casey's father, George, attempted to take his life. Police were able to locate him at a hotel in Daytona Beach, saving his life. At the scene, they found a 5-page note and photos, including one of Kaylee, and he was under the influence of what appeared to be a mixture of alcohol and medication. It wasn't hard to understand how George got to this point. His granddaughter was murdered, and his daughter, well, if the public had any doubts about what she had done to her daughter before, they were gone now. At this point, all eyes were on Casey. Thus began one of the most followed trials in criminal history, with crowds gathering outside the courtroom, members of the public getting into physical fights for seats, and nearly 100 million viewers tuning in around the world. After all, prosecutors weren't just charging Casey for murder, they were going for the death penalty. Even inmates got involved. In December 2010, Casey's jail inmate Maya went viral for claiming Casey allegedly confessed to her that she sedated Kaylee with chloroform.
She told me that because she was young, she wanted to go out and party, but she didn't want to leave her baby with her mother.
But another inmate named Robin alleged Maya fabricated this information due to potential benefits she could gain by helping with the case. So this was not taken in as evidence. By the time her trial began in May 2011, the case was heavily covered by cable news channels, but what emerged from this trial were two very different stories. But how could a case that so clearly pointed to Casey as the murderer produce two contradicting versions of events? The prosecution laid out a clear argument. Casey Anthony was a pathological liar who wanted to be free, even if that meant getting rid of her child permanently. And the evidence? Well, it spoke for itself. Suspicious internet searches for chloroform, how to make chloroform, neck breaking, and household weapons on March 17th and March 21st, 2008, approximately 3 months before Kaylee was last seen alive. Another suspicious search for foolproof suffocation on June 16th, 2008, the same day Kaylee was last seen. On June 18th, 2008, Casey borrowed a shovel from her neighbor, Brian Berner. She told him she needed to dig up a bamboo root she had been tripping over. She returned the shovel about an hour later, and he witnessed Casey back her white car into the family garage. The sticker outline on the duct tape over Kaylee's mouth that it turned out eerily resembled stickers found in Casey's bedroom. Forensic testing on a carpet sample from Casey's trunk had chloroform, fatty acids from a human, and a clear decomposition odor, along with a strand of hair microscopically similar to Kaylee's with a death band.
It was, I recognized it as human decomposition odor. I essentially jumped back a foot or two, and the odor was extremely overwhelmingly strong. Acetic acid is a byproduct of human decomposition, for one, but also it's a byproduct of manufacturing chloroform.
And of course, Casey's bizarre behavior. Casey told police she last dropped Kaylee off on June 9th, but her parents later confirmed that the last sighting of Kaylee was June 16th, also believed to be the day she died, meaning Casey borrowed a shovel 2 days later, went clubbing 4 days later, and got a Bella Vita tattoo 16 days later. However, Cindy Anthony claimed she was the one who made the online search about chloroform.
I was on it several times. Were you on that website 84 times?
I don't know.
Self-defense.
Yes, I did not search for self-defense.
Household weapons.
I did not search for household weapons.
Neck breaking.
Even though records show Cindy was at work when the searches for chloroform were made, Casey's mom now says she was really at home. It's a flip-flop that could damage the state's case.
Cindy even backtracked her 911 call when she said she smelled a dead body in Casey's car, flipping it to the smell of rotting trash. Her excuse was simply wanting to pressure police to come to her house faster that day.
I don't know why I said it that night. It just came out.
George Anthony, on the other hand, testified against Casey, making him one of the only 2 key witnesses at the time besides detectives. It was later revealed that he was approached by lead prosecutor Jeff Ashton, who told him they had proof Casey was responsible for Kaylee's death, likely the same evidence we previously listed.
I never knew of anything that happened to Kaylee until our life started to unfold on July 15, 2008, and when Kaylee was found on December 11th.
It's unclear if Casey knew about this, since she would likely feel extremely betrayed. The betrayal was a common theme here. Jose Baez, Casey's defense attorney, stood before the jury with a completely different story.
She never was missing. Kaylee Anthony died on June 16, 2008, when she drowned in her family's swimming pool.
According to Baez, Casey panicked. So, who allegedly covered it up? George Anthony, Casey's own father. In front of a stunned jury, Baez claimed that George found Kaylee in the pool and immediately blamed Casey.
George began to yell at her. "Look what you've done! Your mother will never forgive you, and you will go to jail for child neglect for the rest of your freaking life."
And then Baez took his allegations further. He claimed George had been essaying Casey since she was 8 years old. That was why she lied so easily, and why she never reacted normally, because she had been trained to hide pain.
This child, at 8 years old, learned to lie immediately.
For his part, George appeared sickened by the accusation and denied everything.
Sir, I never would do anything like that to my daughter.
My question is, you would never admit to it, would you, sir?
And the unusual part we noticed about this was, back in Casey's July jail visit call with her parents, she poured her heart out to George.
You know, you can tell me anything.
I know that, Dad.
I miss you, sweetie.
I know that. I miss you too.
I wish I could have been a better dad and better grandpa, you know?
You've been a great dad and you've been the best grandfather. Don't for a second think otherwise.
Well, you know,
you and Mom have been the best grandparents. Kaylee's been so lucky.
But the damage was already done. The media took the story and ran with it. And suddenly, the trial wasn't just about Kaylee. It was now about family secrets, cover-ups, and trauma, as the defense attacked George, even using his attempt to take his life against him.
You even left a note.
Yes, sir, I did.
And you expressed some guilt.
But through tears, George maintained his attempt to take his life wasn't about guilt, but grief.
I needed at that time to go and be with Kaylee.
Meanwhile, Casey remained stone-faced. Her defense team even made additional allegations, including claims that her brother Lee essayed her and her father George cheated on Cindy, in an effort to discredit her family and explain Casey's emotionally detached and dishonest behavior. The Anthonys denied these accusations. On June 30th, the defense rested. Baez's closing statement repeated that Kaylee Anthony's death was not murder.
This was an accident that snowballed out of control.
And again, the attorney shifted attention to George.
There's one thing you can see in George Anthony, and that is that this man doesn't have an ounce of paternal instinct in him. Not an ounce.
There was one person who never spoke, Casey. She never took the stand, never answered for her actions. So, with no explanation from the accused and 2 very different stories from the prosecution and the defense, would Casey be found innocent or guilty? After 11 hours, the jury made a shocking decision.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all.
While Casey breathed a visible sigh of relief, the public was left stunned.
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all.
But at the same time, many were not surprised that the American justice system had failed again.
Same reason why it happened with O.J. Simpson. He was, he was guilty. Everybody knew he was guilty.
It's O.J. all over again.
It's worse than the O.J. Simpson verdict.
Outside the courtroom, the public gathered to protest the jury's decision.
Kaylee! Kaylee! Kaylee!
Outraged as she walks. Outraged.
Among the crowd, One protester stood with duct tape and a heart-shaped sticker over his mouth, a chilling reference to the way Kaylee's remains were found. Everyone had the same question. How had the jury allowed Casey Anthony to walk free? Well, the prosecution may have painted Casey as a manipulative monster who wanted her daughter gone, by any means necessary, but the jury had doubts. See, the evidence presented by the prosecutor, though disturbing, was mostly circumstantial.
I don't think anyone in America could tell us exactly how she died. If you put even just the 12 jurors in one room with a piece of paper, write down how Kaylee died, nobody knows.
But that didn't mean they believed the allegations against George Anthony.
There was no evidence, none at all, and that had no bearing on any verdict that was made.
Or even that Kaylee had drowned.
There's no evidence that convinced me of that, no.
And while Casey wasn't found guilty of murder, she was convicted on 4 counts of providing false information to law enforcement. For her crimes, she was sentenced to 4 years in jail in order to pay a $4,000 fine. However, since Casey had already been incarcerated for 3 years leading up to the trial, she earned credit for time served and good behavior. This meant Casey was released on July 17, 2011, just 10 days after her sentencing. And after serving 1 year on probation for check fraud, she was officially a free woman. And with that, Casey seemingly disappeared. In the meantime, her parents faced a significant amount of backlash following the trial due to their divided stance, with George testifying against her and Cindy flip-flopping about chloroform and the decomp smell. So, in early 2024, they were eager to clear their names by taking a lie detector test administered by a former FBI examiner. Both George and Cindy passed the tests. George found to be truthful when denied any involvement in Kaylee's disappearance, as well as when he denied the essay allegations against Casey. And Cindy was deemed truthful when she stated that George had never confided in her about any involvement in Kaylee's disappearance. While polygraph tests are highly controversial due to their inaccuracy, there was still a large majority of people who sympathized with the Anthony parents. So, where was Casey over the years? Would Casey go into hiding for good? Or was she just waiting for the right moment to step back into the limelight? There were odd sightings here and there. For example, in 2016, rumors swirled that Casey was working as a photographer in Florida after photos of her holding a Canon EOS surfaced.
It was a childhood hobby for Casey and something that she didn't carry through to her early adulthood. And when she had Kaylee, she took many pictures of Kaylee as well.
Another time, a TikTok user even claimed that before she met her partner, he had a run-in with Casey at a bar in West Palm Beach, Florida. She was going by a different name by then and flirting with him. However, when she left to go to the back room, someone let him know who she was. According to the TikToker, he immediately called her a baby killer and got up and left her sitting there looking dumb. In 2021, body cam footage showed Casey reporting a verbal and physical harassment from a former friend. She explained they dated the same cop at different time frames, but now he was an ex.
Can I file an incident report? Sure, what happened? So I'm still wet. I got a drink thrown at me. This girl has been harassing me for a while. I have her cell phone number. We dated the same person for a couple years. Whether they're together or not together, she got upset that he had texted me. I let her know that he had, and she came inside and threw a drink at me.
This footage felt painfully ironic, as people criticized. Someone throws a drink on you, immediately calls the cops. Biological kid goes missing. Parties for 31 days. An accused child murderer is dating a cop. That's Florida for ya. Living the exact life she wanted back in 2008. Just bars, men, high school drama, and no responsibilities. Then in 2022, there was the documentary, Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies, that featured Casey's first on-camera interview, where she continued to deny knowing anything.
I still don't know.
What?
What happened to Kaylee?
And again, blamed her dad.
I was physically hurt. Scared because I was physically hurt and I can't tell mommy what happened. She'll get mad at me. That's what I was told.
The documentary also revealed what Casey had been doing for the past 10 plus years. According to Casey, after the trial, her defense team helped her get back on her feet. Specifically, Patrick McKenna, the lead investigator for her defense, hired her as a research assistant for his legal cases.
Okay, so I guess we'll make a file and print out.
Give me 2 seconds and I'll see if I can word search the document and find it.
And recently, in 2025, Casey is a trending topic again. See, on March 1st, 2025, Casey appeared in the most unexpected place, TikTok.
This is my first of probably many recordings on a series that I'm starting.
Under the username Casey Anthony Advocate, she explained what she was now doing.
I feel that it's necessary, if I'm going to continue to operate appropriately as a legal advocate, that I start to advocate for myself and also advocate for my daughter. For those of you who don't know, my name is Casey Anthony. My daughter is Kaylee Anthony. My parents are George and Cindy Anthony. This is not about them.
However, Casey warned that didn't mean she would be talking about what her parents have said and done in following videos. But this video was only about reintroducing herself to the public.
I feel that it's important that I use this platform that was thrust upon me and now look at as a blessing as opposed to the curse that it has been since 2008.
Casey added that, in order to protect her privacy, she would be filming in her car.
I will explain in great detail why it's so important for people to protect their privacy. And with the current climate in our country especially, it's that much more important, which is why I am utilizing the Substack platform. Yes, I am advertising this and publishing this on TikTok, possibly also through other meta platforms, but my intention is to separate from that.
Basically, Casey would be using her Substack as a space to discuss legal matters. And for now, she was testing the waters on TikTok.
Anyway, I appreciate your time and we'll see how this goes.
Safe to say, it did not go over well. See, the internet doesn't so easily forget, with many users posting videos summarizing that case for those who were familiar. There were even those who provided life updates on Casey that might have gone unnoticed.
Not only is Miss Casey Anthony a prolific toddler murderer, she's also a prolific homewrecker.
Casey was reportedly dating Tyson Ray Rhodes, a married father of 2. The two allegedly met at a gym in South Florida, where they joined a group chat with other gym members before they began to speak privately. Their relationship allegedly began with an affair in January 2024, before Casey moved to Tennessee to be with him.
That's her moving out of her marital home 90 minutes before Casey Anthony moves in.
She doesn't care if he's married or not, an unnamed friend of Casey told the Post. That's his business. All she knows is that he makes her feel good, and she likes that. She was willing to follow him to Tennessee. She sees a future with him. I was like, Casey, a married guy? And she laughed and said, oh, shut up. I'm living the life I want.
Scum, man. She's got no f***ing emotion. She's a cold-blooded killer, dude.
Eventually, the algorithm kicked in, and thousands of people swarmed Casey's page to make sure she knew she was not welcome.
I don't care what you doing. I don't care who you think you helping. I don't care. Take them resources, turn them over to somebody we can trust.
And to demand answers.
Since when the f*** did we ask for you to get on TikTok? We know who the f*** you are. What the f*** did you do to your daughter? Don't try and get up on this platform and act like this is a fresh start. Answer the questions the American public and the world has had since 2008.
The backlash became so intense that Casey eventually locked her comment section. Still, some users couldn't look away. And just like that, Casey's following began to grow. Naturally, this fueled further outrage.
Can anybody tell me why 35,000 of you, actually over 35,000 of you, hit the follow button on this bitch's page? I know that for some reason we love to give a platform to sick, twisted mothers, especially on this app, but you do realize that she now can monetize on this app.
Despite these callouts, Casey's following grew even more to over 80,000 on TikTok and 5,000 on Substack. Speaking of which, what was the accused murderer posting to her Substack account? Casey's bio read, It has been more than 16 years since my name became a household one. Everyone seems to have an opinion about me, about my life. I am an advocate, a researcher. These are my words. This is my real life, CA. But did her Substack provide any real insight? On the surface, she talked about everyday problems, including failures of the justice system, as well as social justice issues involving women's and LGBTQ rights. But beneath that, it seemed like she was addressing her own situation, almost as if she were justifying or defending herself. Just take a look at these posts that felt more like warnings or arguments than educating. The presumption of innocence is a sacred right afforded to all individuals arrested in this country. That is not an opinion, it is a fact. Once a verdict is read, however long the process takes, the public must trust that the system worked the way it was intended. You, as the general public, will never know the full facts of a case. The media will never tell you the full truth. They will tell you what you think and how to feel. Educate yourselves, stop spreading hate. In another post, Casey wrote, "For everyone speaking, good, bad, or otherwise, heed your words and make sure you are saying something of substance. Here's the law in Florida about threats, libel, and slander, etc. You don't have to be a Florida resident to be charged. The internet is not a protected place. I will remind you that this is not legal advice, purely public information. You need to educate yourselves before you implicate yourselves. I would say stop the bullshit, but I think that's asking a little too much. So unsolicited advice? Proceed with caution." This post was met with a lot of criticism. Let's not forget that your attempt to play the role of a legal expert is steeped in the irony of your own criminal history. You've never been held accountable for your daughter's death. There are far too many unanswered questions. Casey responded, "I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what needs to be done to protect the world from people like you. Best wishes." Another user commented, "Calling you a murderer is slander. Got it. How about a neglectful piss-poor excuse for a mother who says she wants to advocate for her daughter, but wouldn't advocate for her by reporting her missing?" Casey's response? Also slander. Casey also used her Substack to post an infographic about Essay Awareness Month, reminding her subscribers to send love to people who aren't ready to speak up or are trying to navigate the trauma. As we know, she made essay allegations against her father during the trial. She even provided more information on her legal advocate journey. Being a legal advocate is something incredibly important, not only to me individually and professionally, but for the sake of our current legal climate. There is a constant rush to judgment. The rights of the many are compromised by the elected few. People are not only unaware of their rights, but most of the time, they aren't even aware that they are giving them away so freely, without consent. Do you know who you would call today if something catastrophic occurred in your life or in the life of someone you cared for? Which is also met with criticism. Where is your legal degree, though? Casey clarified, "I am one of the many people operating in a support role in our legal system. I am not providing legal advice, merely public information, which any person can do." A few examples from Law Insider. The list continues. Anyone can be an advocate. Another person asked about Casey's impact. What exactly are you advocating for? And what are your intentions for coming on a public platform? Also, how many people have you helped? I'd be interested to know. To which Casey claimed, "I'm advocating for our legal system and making sure people have access to public information. I have worked on hundreds of cases since 2011. As you noticed, Casey was responding to a majority of comments. So, people asked about Kaylee, likely to see if they could catch anything off. How often do you think of your daughter? But Casey always had the perfect answer. Every single day. Kaylee is and always will be my first great love. This picture has been the background on my phone since 2011. Another asked, "Did you care about your daughter?" Casey claimed, "I not only care about my daughter Kaylee, I named her. I gave birth to her. I raised her. I tried to protect her from the monsters in my house, from the people who raised me, from the people who hurt me, who hurt my brother, and was unsuccessful. No one protected me. No one protected my brother. No one protected her. The love that I carry will only continue to grow, and she is the reason that I continue to fight for our system, behind the scenes every single day." Each of those pictures that you saw of that little girl, that you continue to see, I took them, with few exceptions. Each of those videos, I took them, with a few exceptions. I did that because she meant the world to me then, and she still does now. But there was one chilling interaction. Someone asked, "Do you wish Kaylee was still alive?" Casey responded, "There is not one day that goes by that I don't wish that she was here. There is not one day that goes by that I don't wish that Kaylee had the opportunity to go to school, make friends, discover who she is as a young adult. I wonder every day who she would be." Another point of interest was the Substack platform itself. This is a subscription service which Casey offers in 4 tiers. None for $0, monthly for $10 USD, annual for $100 USD, or founding member for $250 USD. The free tier gives access to occasional public posts, but other paid tiers would give access to subscriber-only posts and the ability to post comments. As of April 2025, Casey has over 5,000 subscribers on Substack, but it's unclear how many of them are paying. For many, Casey's presence online and ability to profit from her alleged crime was an issue. This means Casey doesn't just have a platform, but she's using it to reinvent herself and potentially rewrite history. And while there were a lot of people calling Casey out under her posts, "You're a child murderer, you get no empathy from me. No matter how many comments you delete, I will not stop. You are a child murderer who deserves to be held accountable. Disgusting, vile, evil. I wouldn't even call you human. Bitch, the only reason you weren't found guilty was because y'all convinced the jury Kaylee drowned." She also found loyal supporters. "I love that you're using what you've been through to empower yourself and others." She was found not guilty in a court of law. That's the way the system works. Let her pursue her life in a way she sees fit. But there is still one question echoing across the internet. Why is Casey Anthony, after all these years of silence, stepping back into the public eye? Well, someone who was once close to Casey had a theory. Rob Dick, Casey's former bodyguard, who has previously come forward to say he believes she's guilty, without a doubt, suggested Casey's recent plunge into social media was inspired by someone else.
Well, I think the new issue with Gypsy getting her show after Casey's show has been denied by everybody. Once again, she has to come to the forefront. She has to try to be out there in the spotlight, as she always tries.
For now, only one thing is certain. When Casey's name is in the headlines, the story is far from over. But as she attempts to write her next chapter, one question lingers. Can she ever escape her past? Or, more importantly, should she be able to?
I can't put it into words. It's so unjust.
She may not have to pay for it in this life, but in the next life, I think God is going to punish her greatly for killing her daughter.
And Kaylee isn't the only case with so many unanswered questions. Check out our other videos of family secrets being revealed.